Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor, and it looks like we're finally starting to get enough data to see some things. So I think I'll talk a little bit about it later. I think I will. I'm pretty sure that's in my notes. Anyhow, we did have a game last night. Wow. I thought last night's game would be something of a bellwether, and I hope it really isn't. Two really weird goals in the first. Wedgwood was way too far out of goal when that player, I forget who it was, but their leading scorer, he got separated from the goal. I mean, I know he wanted to cut the guy off, be intimidated, but he kind of got a little bit far away from it. So when the guy swooped around, he had a huge task to get back over to the post, and he didn't, which wasn't the problem. But I guess it's a matter of him sliding. He wound up hitting the puck and knocking it in. So. Yeah, kind of weird, kind of a weird goal. I think the second goal was kind of weird too, but yeah, then it just never really kind of straightened up for the Preds. And I, being honest, I only watched into the second period, and I think after the third goal, we decided to do something else with our evening. And so I guess in the second period, there were two power plays. Both Florida and Nashville got a power play, and then the Florida got a second power play in the third period. And then Parsons got a just after goal. About less than 30 seconds later. It must have been something to watch. I guess there were 20 penalties in the game, 3 power play goals, and then a just after shorthanded by Nashville. At the beginning of the third period, there were 4 penalties, I guess 2 sets of coincidental minors at 0. So I guess I could go back and I have the recording. I guess I can go back and watch and see how all that played out. But boy, all the penalties in the third period just seemed a little. I don't know if the game was just chippy, and so the refs decided to start throwing out penalties to try to get control of the game, or what. But there you go. What a game. That's really not the momentum. If the team was saying, or there was some talk that the team felt like maybe they had been at home too long and they needed to go on the road, maybe they needed to go on the road to realize how good it is that they have it back at home. Anyhow, so that was last night. Then the tomorrow night is the main focus of today's podcast. Tomorrow night, the Predators are home to take on the Utah Hockey Club. It is the team, not the franchise, the team that used to be in Arizona. For those of you not following along, it's kind of a weird scenario. The franchise is still in Arizona, but the team is now in Utah, and they haven't decided on a mascot, on a name yet. So it's the Utah Hockey Club this year, and next year they'll change it. So I guess all those people out there buying the Utah stuff will get to buy something new next year. That's pretty clever. Not sure why they're taking so long. I guess it doesn't matter. In any event, they are 6-5-3. On the road, they are 3-3-2. They are 4th in the Central Division with 15 points, 1 point behind Dallas. They did win their first 3 games. The first one was at home, 2 on the road. Then had 2 series of 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses. So they lost 2, won 2, lost 4, won 2, lost 2. And it's kind of weird to see that kind of a sequence. But anyway, and they won last night. I was not expecting them to win last night, but they won last night. Another interesting fact about their schedule is 6 of their 14 games have gone to overtime. So almost half. And they're 3-3 in those. They are 3-2 against the Eastern Conference and 3-3 versus the West, 2-2 versus the Central. The Utah Hockey Club have been primarily playing Ingram at goalie, and so that is who we will most likely see tomorrow night. Connor Ingram is 6-2-3, and Karel Vejmelka is 0-3-0. Go through a couple of roster changes. I think given this far into the season, I'm going to stop doing this. I think it becomes less interesting as to who's not there and who is there this far into the season. Now it's, we're 14, 15 games in. So I think after today, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. It's kind of interesting to look up to see, but I don't always get it right. I took a snapshot of the rosters in the middle of the summer in order to have something to compare, and it's not always entirely accurate as to who was vital last year. It would be more interesting to see if any of their leaders were no longer with the team, but again, if they got rid of a good player and brought in another good player, what difference does it make, right? So unless there's somebody notable, say Connor McDavid was no longer with Edmonton, and something like that would be worth pointing out. Excuse me. But notables not with the team. I didn't really, of the list that I have, I didn't really see anybody that played more than 16 games, and so I didn't really think that was notable. I could have done a little bit more analysis and figured out if they had played or scored against the Preds or something like that, but I just looked at it and said, hey, they didn't play that many games. One of them was an unrestricted free agent picked up by somebody else, but since they only played 16 games with Arizona last year, I didn't worry about it. New forwards that are notable: center Kevin Stenlund, unrestricted free agent from Florida. Right wing Kyler Yamamoto, unrestricted free agent from Seattle. Defenseman notables not with the team anymore: Josh Brown, unrestricted free agent signed by Edmonton. Travis Dermott, he went on a professional tryout with Edmonton and was signed. And then there was a trade which involved a defenseman. So J.J. Moser is not with the team anymore. He was traded along with Connor Geekie, a 7th round 2024 and a 2nd round 2025 pick. 2 guys, 2 picks, 4. The trade was with Tampa Bay for defenseman Mikhail Sergachev. So Mikhail Sergachev is a defenseman now with the team as a result of this trade. J.J. Moser not with them anymore. He's playing with Tampa Bay, along with Connor Geekie. May not be saying that right, but it's what it looks like. Geekie. So they really wanted to get this guy. A 7th round 2024, 2nd round 2025, Connor Geekie and J.J. Moser for Mikhail Sergachev. And Mikhail is their time on ice leader, so I guess they really needed somebody to anchor their defensive pairs. And that's what he is there now. So, notable defenseman new: Mikhail Sergachev, Robert Bortuzzi, unrestricted free agent from the New York Islanders. Ian Cole, unrestricted free agent from Vancouver. Maverick Lemoreau, brought up from their affiliate, the Tucson Roadrunners. The Tucson Roadrunners affiliate is where Maverick Lemoreau was from. And then Oli Mata. Oli Mata is now with the team. Defenseman Oli Mata in a trade this season. So October 29th, a trade with Detroit. And Detroit gets a third round 2025 for Oli Mata. And so that is the story there. They get the same goalies that they had last year. So nothing to note there. They have nobody out on injured reserve, so nothing there as well. Their stat leaders, right wing Clayton Keller leads in goals with 6 and points with 13. Center Nick Schmaltz leads in assists with 12. Right wing Dylan Gunther leads the team in shots with 38. Defenseman Vladislav Kolyachungdok leads the team in shooting percentage with 33%, 1 of 3. He has played 12 games. Not a shooter. Defenseman Mikhail Sergachev leads the team in time on ice, 25 minutes, 37 seconds. Defenseman Michael Kesselring leads in plus-minus with 6. He's on the ice a lot, so 20 minutes time on ice, and he's got the highest plus-minus. I guess he's on the ice at the right time. Center Jack McBain leads the team in penalty minutes with 26. He did get 15 minutes in one particular game, which is why it's so high. In an overtime win with the New York Rangers, both he and Rangers center Adam Edstrom got a fighting and game misconduct. So I didn't see the game, but I guess he's got 26 minutes. Tomorrow night is the Utah Hockey Club's 15th game of the year. Last year, at this point, the Arizona Coyotes were 7-6-2 overall. I don't know why I'm doing this. They were 3-5 in their first 5. So just back to the Preds being 0-5, I guess. Their 15th game last season was a 3-4 overtime loss to Dallas. And they were 7-6-2 last year, 6-5-3 this year. Tomorrow night is also their 9th game on the road. Last year, they were 3-4-2 on the road. Their 9th road game was the above loss to Dallas. Aforementioned loss to Dallas. There's nothing above you. It's aforementioned. This year, they are 3-3-2 on the road. So last year, 3-4-2 at the end of 9 on the road, and coming into the 9th road game, they are 3-3-2. The 14th game that they had last year was in Nashville, and it was a 7-5 win for Arizona. FYI, last year, around about the same time. Tomorrow night's game is the last of a 4-game road trip. They are 1-2 so far. They've lost at Vegas, Winnipeg, and then won in St. Louis last night. The Nashville Predators. The Predators, after last night's loss, are now 4-9-1, 3-6-0 at home. The Preds are in 8th in the Central Division with 9 points, still only 2 points behind Chicago. The 9 points does make them last in the league, though. 3 teams have 10 points, Anaheim, Montreal, and San Jose. So 1 point, and they could be tied with those guys. The Preds are 2-4-1 against the Eastern Conference, 2-5 versus the West, 2-1 versus Central Division teams, which Utah is one of. And it's the only division that they are positive against. At this point in the season, looking to see, what it is that they could have an advantage over. And apparently it's Central Division teams so far. Tomorrow night's game is the only game at home in this quote-unquote stand, but the only game at home between two road trips. After tomorrow night, it's 5 on the road: Colorado, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle. Tomorrow night is the Preds' 15th game of the year. Last season, the Preds were 5-10 in their first 15 games. Their 15th game was a 2-3 loss to Anaheim. So they were 5-10 in their first 15 games last season. They are 4-9-1 so far this season. Tomorrow night is the Preds' 10th at home. Last season, 6-4 in 10 home games. The 10th game was a 4-2 win versus Calgary. This season, 3-6-0 at home. So 6-4 last year, 3-6-0. Their 10th game was later in the season last year. Players to note: Tommy Novak. Center Tommy Novak is still day-to-day. Interesting, he was not listed this morning as day-to-day, but I took a quick look when I sat down here at the microphone, and he's back listed as day-to-day. Center Colton Sissons is out. That's all they had to say there. The team stat leaders: left wing Philip Forsberg leads the team in goals with 6 points with 11. Ryan O'Reilly, center Ryan O'Reilly, and defenseman Roman Josi lead the team in assists with 7. Josi also leads the team in shots with 58 and time on ice at 25-30. Center Juuso Parssinen leads the team in shooting percentage. Got a goal last night. So he is now up to 40%. 2 goals on 5 shots. He's only played 6 games. And looking at somebody that's played more games, second on the list, center Gustav Nyquist is second at 26.7%, 4 goals on 15 shots. And he's played 14 games. After last night, we do have a player that is positive in the plus-minus category. Did not going into last night's game. But defenseman Mark Delgazzo, he now leads the team in plus-minus with 1. We have 2 other people. So he was at 0, along with left wing Zachary Herrera. But while Zachary has been left by Mark, he has been joined by Philip Tomasino and Luke Evangelista. Right wing Luke Evangelista, center Philip Tomasino are also both now at 0. What do you know? We've got 4 players who aren't negative. And new to the leader in penalty minutes is defenseman Luke Schenn with 20. So there that is, for what it's worth. Okay. The Preds stats at home. The Preds are 3-6-0 at home, losing their last home game Monday 0-3 to LA. In that game, the Kings scored the first goal in the first period, about 2/3 of the way through the period. The second period was scoreless. 35 seconds into the third period, the Kings scored again, and Kempe finished the scoring with an empty netter at 17:02. I was at that game wearing my King stuff, cheering for the Kings. So far, I am 3 for 3. 3 wins. Whatever team I'm at the Preds game, whatever jersey I'm wearing, that team wins. So that means the Preds are 1-2. I wore my Kraken stuff, but I was pulling for the Preds, but I wore my Kraken stuff, and the Seattle won, and the Kings won the other night. Back to the Preds, they did not get the first goal of the game since they were scoreless. They did tie the second period, and they lost 2 periods. So looking at last year's stats, or just looking at stats, so when tying 1 period last year at home, the Preds were 12-11. So when they tie 1 period, 12-11. So not a good scenario, but yeah. This year they're 2-4. 6 games. It's still hard to get anything significant out of that. When they did not get the first goal at home last year, they were 7-11. That's still almost 500. Okay, it's not really 500, but it's not overwhelmingly the situation where we'd say, hey, they didn't get the first goal. It spells trouble. Overall, when they didn't get the first goal last year, they were 12-20-2. So again, it was about a 50% advantage-ish, not quite 2-1. When they didn't get it, 2-1 that they'd lose. This year, 2-4 when they don't get the first goal. When losing 2 periods last year, they were 1-11 because in that one win, they did happen to win 2 periods. That was a game against Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh scored 1 goal in the first and the second. The Preds got 2 in the third and then 1 in overtime. This year, they are 0-4 when they lose 2 periods, and I think that trend is going to continue. Yeah. So far as the getting the first goal, the 4-9-1 Predators are 4-10 and getting it overall. 1-3 when getting it, 1-2 at home, 0-1 away. 3-6-1 when not getting it, 2-4 at home, 1-2-1 away. So getting it isn't that big a deal, but when you're 4-9-1. It's hard to say what you're doing that helps you win. Last year at this point, they were 5-10 in getting the first goal overall, so very similar. 4-10 last season, 5-10. So eventually they righted the ship. The thing that's kind of interesting about last year was that they were on one particular tangent, one particular path, and then that whole U2 concert thing happened and the Preds started playing better. So I think they need to find their U2 moment sooner. But they were 5-10 last year, 3-5 when getting it, 2-2 at home and 1-3 away. 2-5 when not getting it, 1-2 at home and 1-3 away. So definitely not getting it looked like a problem. Winning by period. So I started looking at my spreadsheet today saying, okay, we're getting further into the season. I'm kind of about looking at the data and looking at these and trying to see what the trends are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I haven't really done a lot of that because I haven't played that many games, right? But starting to play enough periods. Definitely played enough periods to kind of look at it overall and say, from a period standpoint, what's going on? And so basically, what I'm looking at here is that they've got to play better in the first period. I think they're basically losing these games in the first period. They've only won the first period once, and that was against Boston, and they won all 3 of the periods in that game. So overall, in the first period, they are 1-6-7. So they've won the first period once, lost it 6 times, and tied it 7 times. The second and third period is the same record, 5-7-2. 5 times they tied it, 5 times they won it, 7 times they lost it, twice they tied it. So in general, that doesn't look so bad overall, 5, 7, and 2. When you throw in that 1, 6, and 7 in the first period, you start to go, okay, well, starting to see. So I tried to look at the particular situations and say, okay, well, of the 7 ties, what happened with the 7 ties, what happened with the 6 losses, and they just have lost the games. They've only won 4, and they won the first period, so there's only 3 data pieces to find in there, and one of them they lost, and was it 1 they lost, and 2 it was from a tie, or 2 was from a tie, and 1 was from a loss. I don't know. It's not finding a good analogy here, but anyway, the 1, 6, and 7 in the first period is what's really standing out to me. Again, and this is overall. And 5, 7, and 2 in the second and third, 1 and 1 at overtime. At home, it's 1, 3, and 5 in the first period, 3, 5, and 1 in the second, and 4, 5, and 0 in the third, and 1 and 0 in overtime. So 4 and 5 in the third, 3, 5, and 1 in the second. Yeah, you'd like those numbers to be better, but if those numbers were better, you'd have a better record. And I think in order for them to get a better record, that home or that first period effort needs to be better. For those of you that are kind of angry about this, I guess, or angry, energetic, because it's a little frustrating. And I know they're frustrated too, but as a fan, it's like, okay, wow, I'm convinced they are going to turn the corner. They're going to turn the corner at some point. I was hoping, that Washington game was something, but the Florida game, boy, really kind of snuffed that out. So I don't know what's going on in the locker room or anything along those lines. All I'm doing is looking at stats and looking at this, started poring over shift changes and when certain events are happening and all that kind of stuff. And it's right now what's looking the biggest tell right now is if they do not win the first period. And I think they've really got to turn that around. They've got to come out and they've got to play better in the first. I don't know what else to say, but that's the thing that really kind of stands out to me. Looking at all these numbers, it's the only thing, and looked at. I'm going to get into goal scoring here in a bit. Too, the winning goal overall at home, 33%, 22%, 33%, 11%. So more likely in the first and thirds. If the Preds win, it's 33% in the first third in overtime. You only got 3 wins, at home. And then the opposing team, it's 33% in the first, second, and third. So not really seeing much out of that. Again, I think the interesting thing is that last season, when the Preds won 39% of the time, the winning goal was scored in the second period, and for the opponents, it was 44% in the third. So the other team won almost half the time. The winning goal would be in the third period. And that's at home. So, and then looking at scoring overall, I kind of got fascinated with that today, basically when okay, so overall, the Preds are getting outscored everywhere but in overtime. 1-1 in overtime. Well, they won 1, lost 1. They're outscored 7-14 in the first, 13-17 in the second, which again is not that bad. 12-18 in the third, and that's really kind of telling because when they win the games and the games that they've won, they've outscored the opponents 8-2. And games that they have lost, it's 4-16. if they can't pull things together and find a way to score in the fourth, and the third, and they've then there's trouble on the horizon there. The first and second period, 6-13, 7-13 when they lose, 4-16 in the third. So the scoring in the third, definitely the scoring in the third looks like it's a problem. And then, I did take that, normalized it out because that's what I do per game. And on a per game basis, the Preds are scoring 2.4 goals a game, and the opponents are scoring 3.6. When they lose, the Preds are scoring 1.7 to 4.3, and and I guess I really should take empty netters out of that, but think about that. And then when they win, they on average score 4 goals in the game, and the opponents score 1.8. And then looking at things at home. They're being outscored 6-8 in the first, 7-11 in the second, 10-14 in the third, and they've outscored 1-0 in overtime because they won the overtime game here in Nashville. When they win at home, they're outscoring the opponents 13-5, and so that is 4.3 normalized to 1.7. When they lose, 11 goals to 28, normalized to 1.8, 4.7. And, so overall 2.7, 3.7. So it kind of looks like a race to 4. The scoring in the third period looks to be extremely heavily weighted to the opponents. I guess that kind of makes sense. Probably take the empty net goals out and see something different. I need to do that because the empty net goals, they count, they're important, but it doesn't really give you the story. Because if you lose 4-2 or 5-2. You'd rather not, but you'd rather not lose. So you were losing 3-2 and gave up 2 empty netters. Well, you were losing 3-2. That's the situation that you were in when you had lost. As far as the game situation goes, because you did. The third goal was the game-winning goal. Now, Colorado did score a 6-on-5 goal when they pulled their goaltender. They scored one. The Preds, I think, got 2. I think that they were down 2 as well. But anyhow, so the score, so that scoring, the third period kind of gets biased a little bit because of the empty net scoring. So I should take a look at that because that would really be a little bit more telling as to the third period and how that really matches up against the first and second periods. Special teams still kind of looking at that. Started to rebuild my spreadsheet today. So I don't have anything to say here. The power, they were 9-3 power play goals, and what was it, 3-1 last night. So the opposition is catching back up. The special teams, last night just wasn't the best game for anybody. Anyhow. Last year in November, they were 7-6, 5-3 at home, and 2-3 on the road. So that's kind of looking at that's the Preds stats. I guess my takeaway from all of that is that the first period is really where they're losing the games. Put it however you want. They're being outscored 7-14. They've only won one first period. So I mean, right now you'd have to say if I was at the game or was watching the game and they didn't win the first period, that it was not looking good for the Preds winning that game. I think that will be something to see because they have played really poorly. Maybe they haven't played really poorly because I've seen them play and I thought that they have played really well in the first period. They've got jump and they did give up some earlier on they were giving up really bad odd man rushes, turning the puck over. I think that they have played a lot better, but not seeing it in the results, right? So I think them playing better is not exactly the way to put it, but the results, the first period results being better is something that will be telling that they've turned the tables. And it's obviously it's not going to be one game. We're going to have to see a couple games in a row where they play well in the first period, and then they can go back to what they were doing last year, playing poorly in the second. But who knows? They probably could be doing that now. But as far as I'm concerned, by the end of the first period, they basically lost the game. So what are you gonna do? Okay. Oh, boy, that's bad. So tomorrow night, tomorrow night's matchup, tomorrow night is the first of two in Nashville versus Utah. We'll play in Utah in April. We'll play them. That game will be 4 days before the next game in Nashville, so we'll play them twice within a week. The first game in April will be in Utah, and then they'll come here to Nashville. Guess I should figure out what town they're in, what city they're in. I guess Salt Lake? I think they're in Salt Lake. I don't know. Anyhow, last year we played the Arizona Coyotes 4 times. Only won one of those games, the second home game. And of those, it was the only overtime game. So Arizona had our number last year, and it took to overtime in order to beat them. The one time that we did. In November, we played in Tennessee and lost 5-7. In Arizona in January, we lost 2-3. February, the overtime game, Tennessee 5-4. Arizona in March, we lost 8-4. The Preds did happen to get the first goal 3 out of 4 times, so that was really, really helpful. The one time they did not get it was in the first away game, the 2-3 loss in Arizona. Preds only won 3 periods. In 4 games last year against Arizona, they only won 3 periods. 1 per game. So since they did have a win, and that win went to overtime, that only period that they won in that game was the overtime period. So all 3 other periods were tied. In the last game against Arizona, they didn't win any of the periods. So, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. I'm really hoping that the Predators turn it around. Obviously, they're not the same team that they were last year. They seem to be playing worse, but they're a better team than they were last year. But they're playing worse. Anyway, and Utah, the players on Utah who were the Coyotes last year had the number for Nashville, and they kept dialing it, and they did not get a busy signal. And so there you go. Yeah. The Coyotes won 2 periods in every game that they won. It's going to be fun tomorrow night. Utah is completing a 4-game road trip. They are 1-2. They did win last night in St. Louis 4-2. That win ended their 2-game losing streak. The Preds have just this one game at home, and then they're on the road. They are on a 3-game losing streak. So that's where we're at. Utah won their last game in St. Louis. The Preds have lost 3 in a row. Okie dokie then. So it's got to be a fun game. I hate to make predictions because I'm terrible at it. Just terrible at it. I even got the goaltenders wrong. I think that was part of the problem too. I'll be honest with you. I think Wedgwood should have played against Washington and Saros play against Florida. That's the way I saw it matching up. I'd have to go back to in order to understand that. I have to go back and look to see what Wedgwood did in Dallas last year and see if maybe he, if he always beat Washington or always beat Florida. I guess always lost to Washington. I think that was a big problem. Last night he got so unlucky in so many things, but he did put himself out of position on that first one. I know the it was kind of a fluky goal, but and that wasn't the end of the night. But I think that had he been in better position, not been so far out, he wouldn't have had to got back so far. He wouldn't have had so much momentum, and those circumstances wouldn't have happened. But as it is, that's what happened. And yeah, I don't know. At back-to-back situations, you're going to be playing both of your goaltenders usually. I really feel like they made the bad call there. But anyhow, we'll definitely have Saros in goal tomorrow night. Scrolling back up here, who is their goaltender? Connor Ingram will be in goal for the Coyotes, for the Utah Hockey Club, the hockey club that skates in Utah. And okay. So what we maybe not a prediction, but what we need to see is the Preds win the first period. That's what we need to see tomorrow night. They can, it's, right now, getting the first goal is not meaningful. It's just not. It's not. So I think they could not get the first goal. I think if they get the first goal, it's actually a problem. I think they're less likely to win if they get the first goal right now. So if they don't get the first goal, but they win the first period, I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a good game, and I think that the Preds have a good chance of winning. If they do not win the first period, it's going to be a long night. That's just how the numbers are looking. And again, these are just numbers from games that we've seen and what games they played and what I've seen, and it's not an indication of future results. However they say that in the banking community. But that, I think if they win the first period tomorrow night, I think that they stand a better chance at holding it together and winning the game. But what they don't need to do is like what they did against Washington the other night, get a goal and then turn around and let their main goal scorer stand in front of the goaltender by himself so that he could get the tying goal back. Got to tighten down on their D. Anyhow, So that's your game summary. That's tomorrow night's matchup. The Utah Hockey Club coming to Nashville. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.